How to break bad habits. Hi everyone, Dan back here from the Geek Physique for another video. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. So these steps and principles, I've picked up a few of these from the book Atomic Habits. Make sure you check that out, and also from my experience working with our coaching clients on their health and fitness goals, and of course on my own journey. So step one is figuring out which habits are bad. Now this can seem really obvious in some ways, but in other ways it really can be quite subjective, and I'll give you some examples for myself, but it all comes down to, I think, your goals and the way you would like to be spending your time versus what you're actually doing. So if you want to achieve X and what you do day to day is not really leading you towards X, then some of those things you're doing are probably bad habits, especially if you repeat them daily, on autopilot. So one thing you can do, this is something I've got from Atomic Habits, you can keep a log of what you do in a day, and you could just write it out anyway, but you need to be really honest with yourself. So keeping a log can be a really good way of doing this, and you can break it down to as specific as is necessary. But what you want to do is put a minus against every step you do, which takes you away from your goals and essentially your ideal. So if your goal is to, let's say, work out in the morning, but you spend a bunch of time in the morning just scrolling on Instagram, that's probably a bad habit that you want to cut out, right? Again, these things can seem obvious, but people will come to me quite often and say, I don't have the time. And then when you examine what they do on a daily, they actually have a lot of time. And this is coming from guys who genuinely struggle with time as well, but they aren't doing themselves any favors in the free time they do have. So this can be a really helpful exercise to find what you're trying to break, and it will give you a good place to start. But if you're watching this video, you might have already a good idea of where to start. So step two, curate your environment. Where you are and who you are with will influence your decision making. So one habit which was holding me back was how much I used to drink. Okay, I don't drink often now at all, really. It's something I would do on special occasions, but it's something that I really don't enjoy as much as I used to do. But where I lived before, I lived in a house share, and a lot of those people like to drink. And before I continue, I'm going to just say, to each their own. There's a big drinking culture in the UK, and I don't knock anyone that does that. But what I'm saying is, in the context of my life and my goals, there was a turning point for me where I really wanted to take the gym more seriously. This is quite a while ago now, but I wanted to take my fitness goals more seriously. When I was trying to train to become a coach as well. All of these things started happening, and it was kind of a domino effect. And I really had to make an effort to go to the gym in the morning, and it really separated me away from that group more than before, when I would actually spend a lot more time with them drinking. Okay, and the point I'm trying to make here is, it's not always the nicest thing to feel like the outsider, right? There is something to being part of the group, being part of the team, being part of a tribe, and just kind of going with the flow, because you feel like you're part of something, right? And you enjoy the time with those people, and it really can separate you from those people. Let's say if you wake up on a Sunday morning to go do a workout and they're still hungover from the night before, there is going to be a bit of friction there. And again, it might not be that they're telling you not to even to go to the gym. They might be quite, leave you to it and you leave them to it. But it will be much easier to start going to the gym if your friends went to the gym. If the people around you encouraged you and gave you positive reinforcement to go to the gym. Okay, so, and I know a lot of people that have had bad habits. Let's say, things like drugs, alcohol, things like that, where they've taken themselves out of an environment, gone to a different environment, started fresh, and it's made it so much easier for them to break those bad habits. So when you hear the saying, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, there is definitely something to that. If you're trying to learn a martial art, if you're going to a gym where there's a bunch of people who know a martial art, like you're trying to learn to box and there's a bunch of boxers there, they can teach you things, right? Whereas if you're just trying to pick up things on your own or practice on your own, it's going to be that much harder. Okay, so start to curate your environment. This doesn't mean you have to cut out all the friends in your life, if they all do things that don't align with your current goals. But I would say try and find people and places that align with your goals and the things you're trying to achieve. And if you can still have common ground with some of those older friends, great. But if you don't, then it may result in seeing those people less and maybe not even at all as you start to become that new person and form new habits. Because remember, you are what you do. So something to keep in mind there. Number 3, make the bad invisible and hard. I can't stress how important this is. And I actually overlooked this quite a bit, because one thing I do like to pride myself on is having good willpower. That's not me, blowing my own trumpet, but just that example I gave you before where I was in the house share where the majority of people like to drink. I separated myself from that group, and I started going to the gym in the morning, and, I would go to bed early and I could still hear music playing maybe. And, that was something that could cause friction, right? And if you want to be someone who's part of the crowd, it would just be easier to keep drinking and be part of that, right? So, but like I said, it kind of relates to the previous point about curating your environment. But I'll give you another example, which I overlooked when I first became a coach. Calories in versus calories out works. And when I started first tracking my calories, of course, it worked, right? It's science, like I said before. But if you're someone who overeats, let's say sweet things, even if you've been smashing your calories to a T all day or even all week, but you've got your cupboards filled with sweet stuff and you cannot have a portion that aligns with your calories, you end up having the whole bag. You just don't have that self-control, or the cravings of the sugar or whatever it is means that you always end up going overboard. You might as well not buy that stuff anymore and make it invisible, right? Make it harder to do those bad things rather than leaving temptation there, right? Again, it may seem really obvious, and some people have pushed back on this with me. This is just on the fitness side of things, saying, well, if you said if you count your calories, you can eat what you like and get your goals, and you can to some extent. But again, it does really make a difference when you make those bad habits a lot harder to do. So again, if you're drinking too much, stop buying alcohol in at least stop having alcohol in where you live. Maybe only have alcohol when you go out, right? These, again, can be things that are hard for people to grasp, and they think, well, what harm is it just having it in the home? But if time and time again you give in to that impulse, then that to me is a clear sign you need to make that habit a lot harder, that bad habit a lot harder and more invisible to do. I'll give you one other quick example. We're all guilty of scrolling too much, right? Now, for me, if I hide my phone whilst I'm working, then that means I don't end up scrolling as much, because it's not in my eye view. It's not in as I'm working, if I have it right in front of me, I'll pick it up and scroll in between tasks. Whereas if I just hide it behind my monitor or behind my PC, I genuinely scroll less. How crazy is that? Just because of it's invisible, it's not in my eye shot, I don't do it as much, right? So again, definitely something you should consider doing. And you can see how all of these tie together to make breaking a bad habit much, much easier. Number 4, replace the bad with good. Taking something away and going cold turkey can end up leaving you with a bit of a gap, especially if that bad habit is kind of like a reward. It's part of your reward system. And this is something I'm not going to go too far into, but I'm going to touch on. Oftentimes, a lot of things we do in life are reward systems without even realizing it. So let's say we finish a day at work and we have a glass of wine, but then having a glass leads to having a whole bottle, right? We reward ourselves for doing our work with that glass of wine. So The key point here is you don't want to leave a gap. You want to fill that gap with something a lot more positive that aligns with the person you want to be and the goals you want to achieve. So if it's health and fitness focused, which is a lot of what this channel is about, then instead of eating some food which you would end up overeating, why don't you save up the money you would spend on the treats that you normally have, and then give yourself a massage once a month or something to that extent, right? It's still a reward for, again, good behavior, right? But it's a reward that's actually positive to your goals and won't take you off track. So, and again, it could lead to boredom. If you spend a lot of your time doing something that is completely negative in terms of the person you want to become, and you're really trying to change yourself, you're really trying to become a different person in line with a new identity, goals that you want to achieve, all of that good stuff, it really makes sense to fill your time with more positive things. Okay, so if you are scrolling way too much, why don't you spend your time learning a language? So if you're going to be using your phone a lot, instead of using your phone to just for cheap dopamine, use it to learn a language and get much more beneficial dopamine, right? Dopamine that's actually worth something. You've actually achieved something. You're moving forward towards learning a language, but you're still getting to use your phone. You probably see the difference here. And again, if you're not spending your mornings doing things positive for your goals, work out in the morning, right? You probably get the idea, but it's the same thing with people who go to things like AA meetings or do the 12-step program and things like that and break addictions. One of the steps usually is to replace it with something super positive. It could be serving other people, right? That's super positive, right? It's really fulfilling. You're helping others instead of doing something negative yourself. Number 5, make the good obvious and easy. You can see how this is the reverse of make the bad invisible and hard. Again, these are from Atomic Habits, and when I read this, I just thought this makes so much sense, and I can see how I'm already doing this, and I just started to lean into it more. So if you struggle to train in the morning, why don't you pick a gym on the way to your work or near your work? That way, you wake up a bit earlier, but once you finish from the gym, it's then very easy to get to work, and you can stack those habits, which is something I'm going to come on to after this one. Or instead, if you want to start doing meal prep, instead of cooking a really complex meal and crazy recipe, why don't you opt for something simple but tasty and quick? Again, these things probably seem really obvious, but if you are trying to do the right things, but you're giving yourself barriers without even realizing, like, I have to pick this gym because it's near me. But if you just want to train during the week and you don't want to train at weekends, why do you need a gym near you? Oh, but what if I want to train at the weekend? How often do you train at the weekend? Okay, not really ever. Right. Pick one near your work. Go to the gym before work. You get it done in the morning. That way, nothing else gets in the way. You make it a bit easier and even easier because then you can go to work straight after. Another thing, if you want to work out in the morning, prep your clothes you're going to wear the night before. I don't always do this, but when I do this, it just makes getting to the gym easier in the morning, right? Again, meal prep. When I do something quick and easy and simple, it means that I can cook like 3 meals. I try and opt for 3. That works for me. Some of the clients we work with cook like 4 or 5 meals at one time, sometimes more. But I like to just throw everything in one pan or everything in one tray. It's quick, it's easy, but I make sure to make it tasty. And again, that's preference, but you get the idea. Make things obvious, make it easy. And I'll give you another one. Some of our clients, they struggle to get their weigh-ins done. I keep my weighing scale under the sink in my bathroom, and I do it when I brush my teeth, right? So you can see how it's in my environment where I'm already doing things. It's obvious and it makes it easy. But this brings me on to my last point, which is habit stacking. Now, this ties in with bad habits and good habits. You might already be stacking bad habits. You could overeat and be scrolling too much. So you could be spending, and I guarantee a lot of people watching this video probably are doing this. You're stuck, bored. You might even have Netflix on and be scrolling on your phone and be overeating at the same time, right? And you might think, well, I need to relax, Dan. But again, it's about who do you want to be? If you want to be someone who spends their time doing those things, then be that person, right? But if you don't want to be that person, you want to be someone who, or maybe you want to do those things less, you want to stack your habits, the good habits at least, to make them a lot easier and to replace those bad habits, right? So instead of having alcohol in the house, then you might not be drinking as well as overeating. Instead of having bad snacks in the house, you might not be snacking and drinking while scrolling, right? Instead of doing that, you could instead, like I said before, if you're trying to get to the gym and get to work on time, you could pick a gym near where you go to work. I know I've used that example a lot, but it's a really powerful shift that a lot of the guys we work with make, and a lot of these things seem really obvious, I know, but you'll be surprised when you really do that exercise I started with. You look at what you do on a daily, how it's actually serving you or not serving you, it really shows, right? Another thing, if you're, I don't know, like I saw something crazy, like people spend a massive amount of time over the course of a year on the toilet on their phone at work. Stop taking your phone to the toilet with you, right? Again, you're wasting time, and you're wasting time like on the screen scrolling, right? Neither of those things are really helpful to you, are they? But they're stacked, right? So replace it with positive habit stacking, like I said, and it will make breaking the bad stuff easier, because you'll understand how one thing could lead to another, and you can flip that and make it more positive for you. So I'm going to recap these steps. Step 1 was make which habits are bad that you have, right? And that will relate to the goals you want to achieve, your ideal, the person you want to become. Step 2 is curate your environment. Step 3 is make the bad invisible and hard. Step 4 is replace the bad with good. Step 5 is make the good obvious and easy. And step 6 is stack your habits. I hope this was helpful. There's probably going to be a video here or here, so click to keep watching. Thanks for the support. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, like I said, leave a comment below if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.